You don't touch it with your foot!
It's a stone, Luigi. You didn't make it.
Hello and welcome to the Omega Republic, a radio podcast program for the furry and brony community. I'm your host, Coppercat. Also joining me today is Morgan.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us here on Suiting Up for Life, where we seek out those in the furry fandom and get to know what it's like to be a furry and what they do to make who they are a part of the community. Today, we have Atlas the Fox joining us, I believe, Georgia?
Yep.
Yes, the state,
Oh
not
my
the
god,
country.
Tom. And in the background is, do you want to introduce yourself, Tom?
Hello, I am the host, the one they call Ghost.
No, he's DDT, aka DeLorean Dutami.
A.K.A. Joseph Martinez.
Oh no.
Yes, well, we're very happy to have you both. Well, I'm going to say both, but we're happy to have at least you here today, Atlas. Before we get started, Go ahead.
So, I'm not sure how much of this is going to be edited out at this point.
None of it,
Oh no,
because you're too entertaining to edit out.
really?
Yes.
Before we get started, we also like to mention how our canine furry friends can help bring a brighter future to the next generation. Check out the link in the description on the program 6 Day Read, where professional instructors and a handful of trained and very friendly dogs help to encourage children. They are accepting donations of any value. Right now, they are only in Chicago, but are hoping to branch out if they can get enough to make it a countrywide program. For every like this video receives of the Omega Republic, we'll donate $1 to the program. Thank you for watching and choosing the OR as your place of entertainment. Now let's get to know our friend with us today.
Hello, I am Atlas the Fox, aka Atlas Vulpes, aka Atlas the Garbage. I go by many names depending on the platform. For this sake, I guess I'm Atlas the Fox, which is my name for furry art. On multiple occasions, I've tried to set up commission art business to no avail because I'm just that special. But I have been in the fandom since around 2010 to 2011. I've formally made like a DeviantArt account around 2011. So I joined Fur Affinity late on 2012. So around the 2010 mark was really where I considered myself a furry, predating my DeviantArt account, which is currently inactive, basically dead at this. I first got into the fandom, I guess, indirectly through Sonic art. Well, I'm not into Sonic games anymore. I'm not really into the Sonic community anymore, but I was around the 2010 year. But currently, I'm just sort of into the general, non-branded part of the fandom where people could just have whatever character they want without being tied to an existing trademarked franchise. I originally was really into making furry art with traditional means, so pencil, colored pencil, paper, all that stuff. But I got really into the traditional side of my art for a while, and then I decided, you know what, I'm done with art. I'm just Tommy's phone.
Yeah, I know. I forgot.
Yeah, so Tommy forgot to put his phone on silent.
Okay, I did.
So I was really into the traditional side of my art for a good long while until I sort of hit a depression and sort of wasn't inspired to do art or do any of my hobbies of any kind for an entire year. But sort of around that period, I decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get back into art digitally this time. I'm gonna try to adopt a new medium, and ever since then, I've sort of been accustomed to digital art, where I guess my drawing platform of choice is technically Photoshop, but I'm not really required to use Photoshop for the type of style I'm going for, because I sort of use aliased brushes is what I call it, but the real industry term for it is binary brushes. which is basically just pixel brushes, like in layman's terms. And I sort of give my art sort of like an aesthetic to look sort of like a 90s Amiga game. And so I also do a few techniques with gradients to make it all fancy with the lighting and stuff. Basically, it's just glorified pixel art on a really high resolution.
Do you have any particular piece that's your favorite?
If we're talking safe for work art, most of the pieces of art that I make that are safe for work are mostly just like shit posts and memes. Sorry
and
for that.
stuff that he made for me.
Yeah, stuff I made for Tommy specifically because he asked for safe for work art. But when I'm not making art for somebody else, it's usually just memes. But everything else is gonna fall under the NSFW category, and I don't think I should show that here.
And anything else you do besides art, or are you just primarily an artist?
He makes music.
Yeah, I make electronic music with FL Studio. I was originally going to label myself like, a furry artist, but then I decided I want to rebrand myself as just an artist, a musician in this case. I wanted to rebrand myself as a musician not tied to the furry fandom when it comes to my music. Long story short, it started out as I wanted to be a furry musician, ended up being like I couldn't get into a single record label with my character as my logo, so I wanted to rebrand myself as a non-furry musician. But I guess you could consider me a furry musician if you really dug into my background, but other than that, I don't present myself as a furry musician when it comes to my music I post.
So you're an active musician. Have you managed to get a record deal of any kind with anyone?
No, and the reason is mainly because I have filed the majority of my attempts to get signed to a record label have been when I was not good enough to be signed to a record label. After a while, I sort of just gave up and started improving like my music in private, where like I just kind of publish it on my own on Bandcamp. If people find me, they could download it, they could pay for it, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But like I haven't been signed because like I kept attempting to be signed when I wasn't even good enough quality wise, and then I gave up, and then like I just decided I was going to improve, and I have yet to make another attempt at being signed, but I want to someday. My current genre, I guess, my genre of choice. Well, the last one I posted to my band, like I have like many trap songs, but I lately wanted to deviate from that because trap music is sort of like oversaturated at this point. Everybody's doing it. If you do trap music and you're just getting into trap music these days, nobody's going to find you because you're just going to like blend in with the rest of the sea of other trap artists. So I decided, well, dubstep's no longer in season, I guess you could say. So maybe I could try getting into this newfangled subgenre of dubstep called rhythm, which is basically just kind of an angry, more clangy, metallic, slow form of dubstep.
All right. And is there any particular music you attribute as an inspiration of sorts?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, my earliest songs were heavily inspired by Aerochord, who no longer really makes that much traditional trap music. He's more into he's more into future bass now. Future bass and sort of bounce and party trap, less so traditional trap like he used to make. He used to make some of the best trap, but like that stuff he used to make is really what inspired me early on, and it sort of like carried through as my style like branched off and evolved on its own since then. But that was my original inspiration.
So basically, John exclusively listens to music by Dave Koz.
No. Like, long story short, my original inspiration early on was Eric.
Are you a suitor? If yes, who made your suit? How long did it take? And will you decide to improve on it? If no, will you seek out a suit maker, and do you have any preferences?
So I currently don't own a suit, but I've always wanted one. The thing is, they're so expensive, and I'm not financially stable right now because Tommy is going to say I spend all my money on Rubiks Cubes. But I'm
right,
Okay, well, basically, I can't afford a suit at this current moment. I've always wanted one, but if I had a preference for the design of the suit, it would sort of be, I guess you could say, skin tight, where it's not really bulky and chunky and hot and like you're wearing a sofa. But I guess that's my only preference, because I guess I can't speak. I guess the reason why I would want sort of a skin tight design is because I could wear clothes over it instead of getting a partial suit. And when I wear clothes over it, it wouldn't be like too hot or anything, because it would just add to the material, I guess you could say.
So you're not suggesting like a kind of like a short hair?
So what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, with typical fursuits, is the bulky ones. They're kind of a longer hair, and they have more of a fluffy look.
Yeah.
You're looking for like a short hair, kind of flat look.
Yeah. So there would be hair follicles, like the vinyl or plastic hair follicles. There would be some of that, but they would be really short, and like most of the remaining pigment that the hair doesn't cover would kind of be on the base material under, so it kind of like blends the color, I guess you could say. But yeah, it would be a bit short hair, just to get clothes to fit on it reasonable.
Have you shopped around a little bit just to see if there's any suit makers that make this particular style?
I mean, I've seen people with those types of suits, but they're usually like fetish suits, and I'm not really into that type of stuff. But so I'm sure it could be made. It does exist. It's just like the only market for seemingly currently is people that are using it for NSFW stuff, which of course I already said I'm not into.
Would you say that you would do? I mean, I know this is kind of a poison word in the fandom, but would you prefer to just do the quote-unquote poodling first before you did a full suit?
So I think I lost the loop at some point. I think I've heard the word poodling like many times and just never bothered to process what it actually meant. So would you kindly spoil that for me?
Of course. Poodling is merely just a suitor that only wears the paws and head. Because, you think about a poodle as shaved, where they leave just like the head and the paws.
Yeah, I never understood that. Like, I think if like outside of the context of like, a fetish, like I don't understand the appeal of a poodling type of suit, because like you could just like have the sleeves go all the way up, so you can at least turn it into a partial with a degree of realism. But I don't think I would see the appeal of poodling personally.
And my issue with poodling is it kind of comes off like I wanted to be Superman for Halloween, but my mom made me wear a coat. Yeah,
so for me, it's the sort of turnoff is it kind of falls in the uncanny valley, because when you can see the whole arm skin if you're wearing a short sleeve, then you kind of, it breaks the illusion.
I gotcha. Well, anyhow, I guess we'll pretty much cover that. We'll go ahead and move on to the next question.
All right. So, based on your choice of animal or your fursona, do you feel it represents your personality, or do you feel connected with it emotionally?
So I chose the most bog standard common animal as my fursona, the fox. But on some level, I do feel like it is a good fit for me personality-wise, because foxes are sort of like introverted, and I guess the stereotype would be like they're a bit sneaky. But like other than that, like it's sort of like I thought the animal was cute, and I thought I could resonate with the subculture of what we project the common personality of fox characters to be. So there's that. Other than that, like I do occasionally make modifications to my fursona, in order to satisfy sort of a desire to be something that I wish I could pull off. If that makes sense. Like in real life, I don't think it would be practical to pull certain things in a way that is pleasing. Like for example, I added a few pounds to my persona's weight, like just because like I'm kind of underweight in real life, and I wish I could conceivably pull off like a heavier, but like I feel like if I did attempt to gain weight in real life, it would just get disgusting. So like there's that aspect of it. I do apply visual traits to my character that aren't part of me in real life that I wish I could have.
So you kind of use your Sona as an extension of yourself in a way.
Yeah, so like I wish I could be one thing and I can't because of certain conditions. Like for example, I wanted my persona to be a little bit chunky, but I'm like horribly underweight in real life, and like I can't really ever gain weight. I literally like eat the unhealthiest shit on a regular basis, and like I don't gain any weight, and it's kind of amazing, but also like I kind of somewhat wish I could just not be like a skinny little like person.
So you've got the skinny person's curse. Eat whatever the heck you want and nothing happens.
Yeah, so like it's at the same time it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. So on one hand, I can eat whatever I want and not gain a single pound. On the other hand, I'm actually under.
Atlas, I used to be like you, and then I abruptly wasn't, and now it's a complete disaster. Just gonna warn you.
But yeah, so like I sort of project what I want to be on my persona, even though I'm not like a certain body type like my persona is.
And do you have more than one animal you use, or do you strictly stick to the fox?
I've actually attempted certain OCs in the past, which only appear for one image before I completely forget about them. Like there's one rabbit character with sort of like a husky fur pattern that I made like years and years ago, but I made one drawing of them. I said I was gonna make them a new OC, and I promptly forgot about them after I got a few pieces of my main fox character. So I ended up, like per Tommy's insistence, you could say, I ended up making a pony character named Logic Puzzle.
And he's just precious.
Yeah, Logic Puzzle. I noticed that surprisingly there were there were not a whole lot. Like you would expect the concept of having a Rubiks Cube cutie to be horribly overused, but surprisingly there's only like a couple pony OCs on Derpy Brew as a whole who have. So I decided, okay, since only two have one, it's obviously not overused, so I might as well add mine to the pile. So I decided to go with like a cutie mark on one side that is one three-sided section of a Rubik's Cube, and on the other side it's asymmetrical, so it's like if you turn the Rubik's Cube around in real life, it would be the other three colors. And so, of course, you could probably guess the main skill of this character is solving puzzles and solving logic problems per its name, Logic Puzzle.
Yeah, lines up pretty well. Surprised about the Rubik's Cube thing, though. Only two?
Only two. In fact, if you find any more of them, they're often just one-off characters.
Or they were made as a joke.
They're either made as a joke. Like only two real characters exist that have continued to be supported. If you find any other ones, they're usually either one-off characters or jokes. I even looked up to see if there was a Rubik's Cube cutie mark tag on there, which of course the concept of a Rubik's Cube cutie mark seems like it would be overdone, so there would be a tag for it. Nope, it's not really as common.
being a furry and or brony, walking amongst society, do you feel more or less alone than before you became what you are?
So, any friends I had before becoming a furry, I never really disconnected with them, and the ones I did were just going to be disconnected anyway because after I said I was a furry, they didn't really have a problem with it. So, it really didn't disconnect me from society. All it really did was expose me to a sub-community that I didn't have access to before. So I don't feel disconnected. I just feel like it tends to be just something I don't talk about to strangers. But other than that, like when I'm online, like I had this whole community of people that I otherwise have known about if I wasn't a furry.
I say, as far as the community is concerned, with the brony side, although you didn't say that you really explored, do you explore both the brony community and the furry community, or do you just mainly stick with the furry community?
So actively, I know more. I know my way around the furry community way better than I know my way around the brony community, because mind you, the reason I took up the brony community in the first place was largely because Tommy is a brony, and also my previous boyfriend was a brony, and also the boyfriend before that was a brony. So of course, it's like I had to have had some form of acceptance of the brony community, and even getting into the brony community at like to some degree, like at some point, because my past 3 boyfriends, including my current one, have all been bronies. So it's really more of like a necessity that I had to become a brony because I have no problem with people who like My Little Pony, and I actually enjoy every single episode I watch with. It's just that like I sort of am not up to date with some of the legacy memes in the brony community because I wasn't around for them. It's like for example, I'm just learning about certain things that happened half a decade ago at this point that Tommy tells me about, and that like it seemed like it was a big deal at the time, but like nobody talks about it these days, so I wouldn't have been able to figure it out on my own.
So during your day-to-day since becoming part of the fandom, what are some things that you started doing differently in your life?
Well, so things I do differently is I don't want to get too NSFW, but it affects my ability to look at Twitter and Tumblr and all sorts of websites in public.
That's not a furry thing, John. That's an in general thing.
Yeah, but like since I follow so many like furry accounts on Twitter, it has made it so that I cannot realistically open Twitter in public on my phone without seeing like NSFW content right in my face, and somebody could easily look and see. So like that's kind of one of the limitations I have since becoming a furry. I can't open certain social media outlets because it's just filled with NSFW content.
Lost.
And it wouldn't have been filled up with NSFW content if I wasn't a furry. Just putting that out there.
False.
Yeah, yes, it would.
I've heard that question from, or not that question, but I've heard plenty of people say that with Twitter.
Because like Tumblr was really the main platform where people posted art of a NSFW nature. Yeah, of an NSFW nature. Since that sort of died, most people migrated to Twitter, and a few people migrated to Newgrounds, but I don't really follow their platform there, and most people that migrated to Newgrounds also have a Twitter, so I guess I'm mostly covered on Twitter, and I don't have no reason to make a Newgrounds account.
So Twitter was the only thing affected?
Tumblr before, but since Tumblr is dead, now it's Twitter.
If you met someone who was new to the furry fandom and they were unsure of which way to go, what would you say to them?
A very clear warning. Don't go to the far side of the internet right out of the gate. Work your way up there. That's all I would have to say. Yeah, but I feel like my experience with the furry fandom, it would be especially true. Like, I feel like I feel like if you're going to go all out with you know the extreme parts of the fandom, work your way up to it. Don't don't get into it immediately, because then you're just gonna ruin. If you work your way up to it, people around you in real life are not going to immediately judge you for coming out as a furry. Like just work your way into it. Give yourself a nice grading. Don't like immediately like one day be on the fence about it. The next day, hey, like I just commissioned, or I just got this like $500 your character here of this character I made yesterday.
And then if an artist only lists a Twitter as their, or Tumblr as their art posting location, then don't worry about commissioning them. They probably die.
So if they're like brand new, they just happen to stumble across the anthropomorphic, or they just happen to see a few people in fursuits. I mean,
yeah,
would
like
you take the opportunity to try to introduce them to them, or?
So if I've already known them for a while and they're saying, okay, I kind of want to be a furry, but I'm afraid of like getting like into the gross parts. Like I would just say, like, if you're on the fence about getting into the gross parts of it, don't worry about being obligated to get into that part of it. Just like work your way up to it.
I think you're misunderstanding. It means like someone's like, hey, I want to get into the fandom, not I want to get.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean to say, like, if you want to be a if you want to be like a non-sexual furry, and you feel like if you're a furry, you're obligated to get into the porn, don't be. That's what I would say. Especially if you want to get into making furry, you're allowed to set your terms of commission. Sorry. You're allowed to set your terms of service to not accept NSFW if you want. There's plenty of artists that do that. It's just a lot of people feel like they're obligated to get super into the NSFW stuff. Myself included. I felt when I started making art, like, and after I turned 18, of course, like I felt like I was obligated to make NSFW art. Really, like, when you first get out of the gate and you're immediately starting to make NSFW art, your fate is locked. People are immediately going to associate you as a porn artist, and you can never shake that. And if you try to shake that, and you try to say, okay, I'm just going to do SFW art now, every one of your followers that you've built up so far is just going to be, oh, you found Jesus, oh, you're lame now. You can't win in that scenario. Either know what type of art you want to make right out of the gate if you're kind of like new to the fandom and want to make furry art, or filter what content you're allowed to draw, or what you allow people to commission you for. Let's say that as like a artist who, like, if I was giving that advice to like an artist who was just an artist outside of the fandom and wanted to get into furry art, that happens a lot to my experience.
So you're more so just kind of trying to give a warning of trying to tell other people to be a bit careful when stepping into the fandom.
Yeah, so I'm sorry for being super verbose about that. Basically, what I was trying to say, if you're an artist and you want to get into furry, don't feel obligated to do porn, because that will lock your fate. You're basically going to set yourself up to be associated with the fandom as a porn artist, and there's plenty of artists that are not associated with porn. So I would say don't feel obligated to draw porn if you get into furry art. You don't have.
Also, limit your fursona to 3 colors maximum.
I guess that too. I have only 3 colors in my fursona, aside from derivative colors.
Are you one of those competition kind of Rubiks Cube players, I guess?
Yeah, I've been to a few competitions. I'm kind of on the slower end of the average.
It has begun.
Were you involved in one of those competitions where the Rubiks Cubes just fall apart?
That would have been a competition from like a decade ago, like where I wouldn't have been a part of. Basically, hardware used to be super unstable, and now it's super stable. So.
Because I say, wasn't it more like the 4x4s and bigger, where they were like always falling apart during like the competitions?
Yeah, because like hardware at the time was not designed to be speed solvable. but people speed solved it. Yeah, people speed solved it anyway because it was an event you could compete in. But otherwise, since then, hardware for all categories has sort of improved to where that doesn't happen anymore.
Super glue, then.
No, not super glue. It's more of like the designer of the speed cube has to make the mechanism more stable.
It's down to design and engineering more than anything else.
Yeah.
Also, anything that's actually made by the Rubiks company kind of sucks.
Yeah. So basically, most speed cubes are made by non-Rubiks brand people that don't call their cube a Rubiks cube, and those are allowed in competition, and they're way.
Is it easier to remove the stickers?
No.
So it's not easier to remove. In fact, the stickers, if you get a stickered variant of the cube, higher quality, they're made of vinyl. So like if a sticker would have started to peel on a Rubik's Cube over time, it wouldn't peel on a non-Rubik's brand speed cube. It would chip because they're designed to chip so they can stay like nice. But like if most people are starting to prefer stickerless cubes now, which are basically just like colored plastic. Those are like an option on most speed cubes where you can get them like that. Yeah, so basically the reason I got super obsessed with Rubik's Cube is because I really wanted to speedrun games like Quake, and I was never good at it. And then I found out I was like, sort of competent somewhat at speed solving Rubik's Cubes, and I'm like, you know what? This is basically like speedrunning a game for me. I might as well get super obsessed with this instead of Quake because I'm not good at it.
And I actually competed too one time, and I did pretty well. I did better than the organizer, who was like 60 or something years old. So I did better than a 60-something-year-old person, so that's good.
Well, the organizer was basically the mom of one of the competitors, so that's kind of why.
I did better than one of the competitors' moms.
Sounds like a fun habit, too. I knew some people who used to be into it, and it went straight over my head.
Yeah, so, like, most people use a method based on, like, a layer-by-layer technique, but, like, the hipster method I use, which is called ROUX method, spelled ROUX, is, like, really, if all you've ever known to solve a Rubik's Cube is, like, a layer-by-layer technique, then ROUX method just kind of would really confuse you. It's basically just you make a sort of like block on one side and you make a sort of like block on the other side, leaving the middle slice open, and you solve the corners on top, and then you solve the last 6 edges. And the way you solve the last 6 edges like is very hard to see if you're not if you don't know what like the person who's solving is doing. You wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at it.
Yeah, sounds complex.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting, though.
Okay, and hopefully we don't have to pay those two to do voice acting anytime soon. But however, we do thank you for joining us here on the Omega Republic. That was Atlas the Fox. We thank them and for you for joining us here on Suiting Up for Life. Hope to see you next time here on the Omega Republic.
Mario impression, I can do a really good